is Alex Del Sordo at another Zoom interview podcast. So CJ is working behind the scenes to make this thing work on a visual, but also on an audio. And I have Jamie Hamp out of the Princeton area. And this guy has been in rowing for a very long time, very competitive. In fact, before our meeting today, he got a workout in, which was lucky him. I couldn't say the same. But right now, he is the perfect coach to talk about, because he does this for a living, on how he's motivating his athletes through this time, and also how he's handling this coronavirus. So Jamie, welcome to the podcast here / Zoom interview. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. CJ.
So
something up.
Jamie, you've been rowing a long time. You've been on some pretty fast teams. Walk me through the beginning. You started rowing and how you got to today where you are running the program.
Sure. So first time I ever sat in an erg, believe it or not, was on a cruise ship in 2006. My family went on a cruise and I hopped on for 5 minutes and thought I was pretty good because I could go under a 2-minute split for 5 minutes. So then I never really thought about it again.
I gotta ask. So where were you going on your cruise? And how old were you at this time?
I was in 8th grade.
8th grade.
It was we got the 1 week in February, President's Week, and 1 week around Easter week off from my grammar school. And my parents decided to take a family vacation, which is to date like the last real family vacation we've taken.
But where did you go? What cruise ship?
Something it was Carnival Cruise Lines. I could not tell you the name of the ship right now.
Hey, hats off.
We did a Caribbean cruise. So.
Hats off to Carnival for having an erg. Maybe I'll reach out to them and see.
13 years ago too, you know.
I mean, that's awesome. It's pretty impressive. So 06, 8th grade. Where were you at grammar school? Where did you go?
So I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I went to St. Amelia's School for K through 8, and then went to Canisius High School, and that's where I really started rowing. I played football and basketball my freshman year, and the rowing coach was also an English teacher, and he told me I should try out rowing in the spring, and I was like, sure, I'll row to stay in shape for football and basketball.
Yeah.
And the rest is sort of history after that.
Who was your coach? Who was your coach back then?
So that spring, my freshman coach was Nick Zinter and Justin Farrington. Both Canisius. Well, Nick was a Canisius grad, and Justin was a St. Joe's collegiate grad. So that's sort of our Canisius's big Buffalo rival. And Paul Cumbo was the English teacher who had been the freshman coach the previous year, took 1 year off, and then proceeded to be the freshman coach the next year. So we were sort of that one-off year, but he was still working with the program. He had just taken a step back for that year, and he was the one who sort of got me hooked.
So wow. So a cruise ship erg for 5 minutes and
3 times.
There you go, even better. And you're like, yeah, I think I could do this. And then, but you were really an athlete outside of that. I mean, you were really you said football and basketball, is that right?
Yeah, so that's what I did in high school. I was doing travel soccer. I did track and volleyball in grade school. So, I mean, I did a bunch of sports in grade school. Obviously, can't really do 5 or 6 sports in high school.
Not today, at least.
No.
So then you went to Princeton, right?
Yes.
So walk me through that. How was that? I mean, you were, you're kind of new to the sport, freshman and sophomore year. You probably had some success senior year, and now Princeton is a big deal. So walk me through that time in your life.
So Princeton was a big change for me because in high school, we finished rowing the first weekend of November, and then generally got on the water sometime in late April. So it was really 6 months on the erg. And it was a big change going to school where my freshman year at Princeton, we were rowing February 1st. And that's only because we couldn't row in January because of the Ivy League rules. I mean, the weather, that was a very mild winter. My senior year, we were frozen out till the middle of March, but it was a big change for me. And I didn't really know a lot about collegiate rowing. I didn't know a lot about rowing even coming out of high school. I mean, we were, a big high school program, but not a major club. My coaches were a little more old school, which I think benefited me long run. But being a freshman at Princeton, it was a really big change. just in terms of getting there and seeing, hey, wow, there are a lot of people here. This rowing community, yeah, it's not huge, but it's a lot bigger than you would think.
Mhm.
The second day of the season for Princeton is traditionally a 30-minute test. Back then, rated 26. So I come in and I'm just like, the longest thing I've ever done is 1 or 2 6Ks. And we're gonna go off at 26 for 30 minutes. So that first piece I did reasonably well. Top 10, not top 5, but it was sort of like, okay, like I can do this. And so that was sort of a confidence boost. And I had two amazing coaches my freshman year, Spencer Washburn and Greg Hughes.
Greg Hughes he's a legend in his own right. What can you tell me about, like, let's go back to when you were 17. What would you like to have known then about that transition from high school to college? Like, what do you tell your seniors today to prepare for at the college level?
I think the biggest thing was just sort of going with an open mind. I mean, and especially, I try to prepare my guys from Mercer for college rowing a little bit, in the sense that, I only graduated 5 years ago, was a freshman 9 years ago. So I sort of have some idea of what it's like a little bit still. And so trying to prepare them for that, but the biggest thing is show up and, we do things one way here at Mercer, and your college program is going to do things a different way. And your job as a freshman is sort of to show up and keep your head down and work hard and listen, because, everything's not going to be the same. And the way we do it at Mercer and the way I do it as a coach is not the only way. It's not the best way. It's just the way we do it. And every other place is going to have their own way. So, if you are lucky enough to go row in college and go to one of those top programs, especially, like, your job is to go there, listen to the coaches, and try to be a contributor.
I appreciate that, but there's one thing that you said there that's really good. It's that certain high school coaches can identify when to push their athletes, and what I'm seeing more and more now at the high school level is that they train equally as hard as they do at the collegiate level. Is that kind of what you're doing at Mercer? I mean, are you training them to maybe not the max level that you did when you were a senior in college, but could you say that your freshman year at Princeton is comparable to what you're doing for your juniors and seniors at the high school level?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I think, I think that my 4 years at college were a big shift, I think. I mean, it was Greg's third, fourth, fifth, sixth years, and, going from the lightweights at Princeton to the heavyweights. I think one of the biggest things I learned from Greg, and one of the things that makes him such an amazing coach, I think, is he's really good at learning how to change and adapt. And, I think he sort of got there for a year or 2 or 3 and was doing some similar stuff to what had led him to success with the lightweights. And then he realized that, that was great, but it wasn't really going to push the team as much as he really needed it to in the heavyweight league. And so there was a lot of change. I have workout journals from my college career, and I go back and I look at my freshman year workouts. I'm like, okay. And then I look at my senior workouts. I'm like, yeah, this is a lot different. And I think that's really what pushed the team and made us better. And right now, I don't think there's a high school program. I don't think my program, I don't think any program is really ready to do what the top collegiate programs are doing now or 5 years ago. But what we're doing is certainly similar to what I was doing my freshman year of college.
How valuable, because I got to tell you, it's great to hear that as an athlete you had a workout journal. How valuable, and I guess this is encouraging words for the kids going into college. How valuable was that for you to have in those 4 years?
Oh, immensely. I mean, during my collegiate career, even just to begin with, hey, I did this workout this time last year. Now I have some idea of what to go for, because I've been 2 splits faster on the workouts leading up to it, and I know exactly what I did. I used to keep.
Did you track your nutrition as well, or was that just your workouts?
I do nowadays. I did not in college. That didn't really start until I was at the training center after college. And I have to credit Liz Fusco and the U.S. rowing staff for helping a lot with teaching me the nutrition stuff. I mean, I certainly paid attention to it to an extent, but it was not as fine-tuned as it is now. And even nowadays, I mean, it's simple stuff, or it feels simple to me because I'm not a full-time athlete. So, I finish my workout. What do? I eat some Greek yogurt with honey and peanut butter. Like that's what I'm going to eat. But I don't know that I would have done that 8 years ago because I just didn't sort of know the idea of, get protein. Yeah, fine. Okay. But, and that's something I'm trying to give to the juniors now, because I really think that can make a huge difference. And, with the amount of volume they're doing, with the amount of volume you have to do to compete with the top junior clubs, we can only do so much in our practice every day, but what they do outside of practice for refueling, for recovery, like, listened to a great talk by Ethan Curran at a conference a few years ago called Training Doesn't Make You Faster, Recovery Does. And I've really sort of taken that to heart with my guys. And, I'm really big on we have a lot of different protocols on the team for, making sure they get food right after practice, that they bring food to practice, that we spend time doing core and stretching and stuff like that.
There's a gap. So I've been in the sport since 1999, and there is a big gap between coaches from the 80s and then coaches today, right? Coaches in the 80s and 90s was pull your ass off, and I don't care what happens when you go home. Like in high school, my best coach ever was Chris Kanicki. We didn't really talk about nutrition at all until the last 4 months of the year. So now what I'm observing is that there is a huge emphasis on the younger coaches on everything outside of the practice. You're right. You can't get anything done in an hour and a half or 2 hours in the water. Now, do a lot of your athletes erg and train outside of your practice schedule? Have they gotten that ingrained in their systems?
Sorry, you cut out for a second there.
Oh, I'm sorry. So have the athletes that you have, do they erg and train on their own outside of your practice? Have they got that in their system?
So, the top guys, absolutely. The top guys sort of want to do that extra work. In the winter, I sort of limit that. We have a 2 hour and 15-minute practice in the winter. And our long days, we're doing 80 to 90 minutes of steady state. Even on the higher intensity days, it might not be, it's obviously not 80, 90 minutes of AT or anything, but between the warm up and the cool down and paddling on the rest, they're still getting 20, 22, 24K. And I tend to think that what we do in the winter is enough. Some guys will do a little bit extra, like an easy spin on Saturday afternoons to flush or something Sunday, or maybe once or twice a week in the morning. But with school and everything, I'd almost rather they focus on really showing up and performing on the days they need to during the winter. And then the easy days, make them easy. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got in college was make the easy days easy and the hard days harder. But then fall and spring, they're doing, 2.5, 3 hours of extra work a week total, including sometimes, some 2K prep sort of stuff on their own too.
So something dawned on me. You said, and it's been stuck in my head, you graduated 5 years ago you graduated?
2015, 5 years ago.
So you're super young, like 26, 27?
27, yeah.
So the guys that
I love playing the game where I have the kids guess how old I am.
Yeah.
When they tell me I'm 36, it's rough, but
but with the age though comes sometimes a lack of maturity. And I'm not saying you're immature, but it comes also like kids may not respect you because of your age. It's how do you address them when they come to your program? Do you command their attention? Do they just because that you did some nutrition, you did some work with the training at US Rowing, you did heavy Princeton, like walk me through that process because you're super young compared to these kids, right?
I mean, and it's hard to know obviously because, I'd love to, have you pull a rower over here and ask them why they do it because it's hard to say myself sometimes, it'd be great if they didn't think I was ever going to hear their answer and get an honest one out of them. But I think part of it is definitely, a little bit of, respect for sort of where you've been. I mean, the majority of your kids on these teams, especially the top guys on any, top junior program, they want to go rowing college. They want to go to a successful program. And I think, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to a successful program. In the moment when I was racing in college, I was, hey, really wish I had won sprints or really wish I had won IRAs. Yeah, I mean, I do. I still do. But even looking back and being like, yeah, well, I was able to, I was fortunate enough to medal at IRAs. And, something that somebody told me a couple months after it happened was, hey, like, yeah, you're disappointed that it's bronze, but, think of how many guys would kill just to be in that A final, would kill just to get that.
Yeah. Me, one of them. I would kill to be in
Well,
that
and
team.
there you go. And like, so I really, it's taken, it took me a little bit because I was a little more hot-headed and impetuous in college. But, uh, I can look back now and say, wow, I'm really fortunate for that. And so I think that little bit of that helps certainly with the high school kids. I'm loud. And I think being loud for high school boys is very important. There's nobody in that room who can shout louder than me.
That's really good advice for like coaches that want to command a room. I think you're right. If you are the loudest voice in the room with a high school boy, you win. Like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Your victory there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you bring this thing like respect for where you've been. Do they ask you ever like about your time at Princeton or your time with the training center? Do they like try to get information out of you from that?
Absolutely. And again, like, as with any high school team, there are some kids who couldn't care less, and that's totally fine. I mean, I'm not their coach to sit there and give my biography, but there are absolutely kids who want to just hear the stories, and there are kids who want to do those things themselves. I was very happy. I was super proud, to be honest. Earlier this year, for the first time ever, a kid I coached beat one of my high school erg scores. And I thought, like, the day that happens, great, awesome, finally. And it was a long time coming in the sense that, when I took over the team a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, very young group, a lot of potential, but not really quite there yet. And so they were just sort of, chipping away. And this year, like, we've got two guys who are, a couple seconds faster than my junior year 2K, and that was May for me. So
What was that? What was that?
2K? Early March.
What was that?
618.
How much was it?
618.
618.
That was the summer of my junior year for me. Yeah.
That is pretty quick. How big is your program? How many guys are on the program?
So this spring, we would have had 48, including coxswains.
What's your 40 kids? So including coxswains. So your philosophy on team atmosphere, environment. I was out on the launch with Gladstone, and if you've listened to any of my podcasts, I talk a lot about the energy that he brings and like what that atmosphere is like. Describe your atmosphere when kids are rowing with you. Like what's it like to be rowing for Jamie Hamp?
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I would say that the number one thing is that my coaching styles have very heavily been dictated by the coaches I've had, and none more so than my college coaches. Like I said, I Greg for all 4 years at Princeton, Spencer for my first 3, and then Matt Smith my senior year after Spencer left for Deerfield. And then in 2016, the spring of 2016, after I was cut from the training center in the lead up to Rio, I actually went out and worked at Deerfield with Spencer. And so that was another, between spending the time having him as my coach and then coaching with him, and then being coached by Greg. I mean, Greg and Spencer have really been my biggest influences in terms of coaching and my style. And I think that, again, with high school boys, there's a little bit of, it's a little bit of charisma and noise and attitude, but not in a bad way, just like a positive sort of push you along attitude in the launch. The kids, it's frustrating as a coach almost, because if I'm sitting in the launch watching them do a 3-mile piece training in the fall, I'll start shouting and banging on the launch and they'll go 3 splits faster. I'm like, well, why did I need to bang on the launch to make you go 3 splits faster to an extent? But it's sort of, it's a mix of, hey, like, we're trying to row better, but also trying to sort of cajole them along and get them to really push their hardest.
So I was with Greg Meyer, an old coach of mine, who had told me that Greg Hughes had said some funny things in the launch. The things that he would yell and scream. Can you just maybe give me, the audience here, maybe a couple of fun Greg Hughesisms, maybe something that he had said to you in the launch?
Well, so there's a couple, things he said in the launch. I feel like those get lost even sometimes too, just because you're in the middle of a piece and you don't remember and you laugh about it after. a lot of his terminology, especially like pieces, is sort of memorable. And even today, I'll say it like, every Saturday in college in the fall was pretty much 3x3 miles, warm up to the dam and then piece back and forth. So, he'd call it Wacka-Wacka, side by each, hangin bangin.
Banging.
We once had a row where it was pretty much the varsity 8, but one of the guys had a test to make up or something in the spring, and we just pulled a random guy and threw him in the boat for the row, and he said it's your Make-A-Wish row, which was a pretty funny one. Which is the one that we still use today at Mercer now. So I mean, I've absolutely taken some of that terminology, but just sort of the side by each is probably my favorite because you have no idea what it means. At the same time, you know exactly what it means.
Side by, I think the Wacka-Wacka is my favorite, and it's just, I think I might title this podcast interview as the Wacka-Wacka with Jamie Hamp, just because it's so fitting. Greg Hughes is part of that group of coaches that ran Eastern Sprints and IRA for years. It's the Greg Myers, it's the Greg Hughes, and the Gladstones, like the guys that just old school rowing. They've been around forever. And I love that. I love the Wacka-Wacka, hanging and banging. I mean, I say that even today. Like, I still hang and bang. But the Make-A-Wish row, that I'm going to try to use that in everyday life now. I'm going to try to adopt that. I won't say it's mine, but I'm going to use that one. That's really great. So I think that's the case for most coaches. I think they take the pivotal moments in their lives and they remember it so well, and they adopt their training styles to those guys. But what's nice about you is that you're sort of a new school, adopting nutrition and stretching and training outside of that. That's really encouraging to hear. Let me talk about your athletes a little bit. So you got these guys that are entered in the ERG competition, and you're sitting in your house or wherever you are, and you can't train them. What are you doing as a coach to keep the kids motivated to get through the next 3 or 4 months?
Great question, and I'm going to preface this with the fact that I don't know that what I'm doing is working. I don't know if it's just the kids have great internal motivation. I don't know that I'm doing the best thing, and I am every day talking to people, texting people, trying to, just looking on social media. Hey, what are other people doing? Is this a good idea? Can we try this? How do we apply this? Matt Carlson, the girls coach at Mercer, we text them. We're both just looking for ideas like that. And so I don't think by any means that I have some sort of monopoly on what's working best or something. I do think I'm extremely fortunate that I have an extremely highly motivated group of guys. And I think that they know that there's really nothing that a lot of us can do about this situation, but I am doing my best to sort of get them a training plan to lead them to be successful in the coming months and everything. So I think that helps certainly, but I do give them a training plan every week. And I've sort of broken them into 2 groups at this point. Obviously, like I said, I've got roughly 5/8 of rowers, a little more this spring. And 16 or 17 of those are juniors. And so I've obviously got a huge junior class. That's really the backbone of the team. And they need 2K scores for college. And I recognize that. And so, we did a 2K in early March. I think it was March 1st, actually, that they did at the Petty Mercer Indoor Row for the Cure. And the scores were fine, but I had rate capped them because I planned on doing another one 2 weeks later. The day we were going to do that 2K was the first day we canceled practice because of everything. It was awesome. So I've sort of been training. I basically had 2 training plans, and they're similar, but twice a week that the group that wants to 2K and they're going to do a 2K this week, has been doing a little bit more prep workouts, and the other group's been doing a little more like, hey, at this point, what are we training for? But the fall almost.
Wow.
And some of the guys are seniors, and they just said, hey, I'm into college. I don't need 2K again right now. That's totally fine. They're taking a little bit more of a long view. Some of the sophomores are, hey, I know I need to work on my base aerobic fitness. Going to stick with that. And then a solid chunk of the sophomores and a huge, the vast majority of the juniors are all, I need this 2K for school. And so they're going into it. So I think there's a little bit of intrinsic internal motivation. And then between the training plan, we do Zoom sessions 2 to 3 times a week with the whole team, mostly just chatting, core, body weight, stretching sort of stuff. Trying to set up some, team game nights or just meetings so that the guys can see each other. I do think that a little bit of the idea of, we're very fortunate being where we are located in Jersey, because if there's any chance that we get on the water this spring, there's plenty of competitive clubs, teams around us that we might be able to get together for a scrimmage where nobody's really traveling. You're not interacting with the other team except 30 feet away on the water. There's a little bit of motivation for that too. But,
I got on, this is really interesting because no one has said this, Jamie. You have two separate training programs running simultaneously. I think that's really unique because you're right. You have the needs. You're no longer a team sport right now, right? It's more about individuals. You are focused on the individuals that need certain things to help get into college. Did somebody give you that advice, or is that just you just came up with that and said, you know what, I'm just going to do that?
No, I guess I have to take credit for coming up with that one on my own. Really, I guess part of it is I absolutely understand how challenging it is to do hard pieces by yourself in your basement. Because I did that a lot in high school. And I will tell you that, I think I had a good record with it, and my good record was a mixed record. There were some days where I'd sit down. Once in my life did I ever sit down and PR a 2K in my basement. Once in my life did I ever sit down and do a 2K and just be like, wow, that was trash. I have had one kid who decided to just 2K a week and a half ago, and he PR'd. Awesome. But I understand that, putting yourself to the sword sort of 3 days a week or 4 days a week or 2 days a week or whatever by yourself in your basement without knowing that there's something holding you accountable is really tough. And so for the guys who that motivate, I'm never going to motivate a guy who doesn't want a 2K and doesn't see the need. And maybe I even have a senior who's not rowing in college. If he's not motivated to 2K, we've all done it. A 2K is a unique part of hell in some senses. And, I'd always rather 6K. So if they don't want to, I don't see a need to push them to do it, sort of. If they still want to train and work hard, that's fine with me, because, if we had a 2K race to train for, then fine. I would want them to be training for a 2K, and I'd be upset if they weren't willing to do that. But in the absence of me saying, yes, this is what we're training for, it's challenging for me personally to say, yeah, go put yourself to the sword and do this hard workout and prep for a 2K that, it just isn't going to happen on the water this spring.
There's a lot really for a coach right now in this time to draw from what you just said. And I really hope that the people that listen to this grab onto what you said. And I go back to it, I've already said it, but I really appreciate the fact that you've built out training programs specific to the needs, but also you're not putting pressure on these kids. You know that because you've lived it recently, right? You're not some, 55-year-old coach that hasn't rowed for 30 years. How hard it is to sit on an erg in a basement and to be motivated. As long as you're doing the work, I think you appreciate it. Now let's dive into the selfish thing. The selfish part is how.
Can I add one quick?
Yeah, please.
Sorry. So one other thing that I will add too is that, I do, and just to sort of go back to what you said about the guys respecting you, I do think the fact that Saturday morning practices, we start at 7:15, and I get there at 5:45 and do 80 minutes on the bike and they keep me up while they're warming down. I think that helps with that too. Sorry.
No, I'm glad you said that, but I'll tell you, you're a freak of nature, and there's not a lot of people that do that or want to do that. So
I do think coaches that work out get. I think that helps with that.
Yeah. Okay. So my second favorite coach of all time is John Bancarey, and I think you know who that guy is. He's a South Jersey boy. My dad has known him since the old days, and he's the largest crew coach, that you can spot a mile away. Yet he is the only guy that I can say in all of rowing that can be over 300 pounds and still command the respect of his athletes. Even with, the whole the whole working out. I agree with you. There are times, even when I was rowing, that I had a coach that I was like, oh, I can't trust you or believe that you tell me to do all this hard work and because it looks like you haven't rowed in 25 years. But now I'm picturing John Bancarey in my head right now. And he's the only big guy.
When I was on the U23 team in 2013, my first year Paul Cook was the head coach. And you know, we had a couple of brown guys at camp, and they love to talk about Paul hopping in the boat and seed racing guys. And you know,
He's an animal. He's an animal.
He's an animal. Yeah. So I love Paul. You know, one of my favorite summers ever. So, but,
I'm just thinking Greg Meyer. So my first time ever with Greg Meyer, this is a really cool story. He was brand new to the team at GW, and we were all new. Like we were all kind of just figuring him out. And he says he sits us on an erg, and it's an hour of power, December 6th, and it's snowing outside, and we're at the boathouse, and there's 14 of us lined up. And I'm on the very end, right? So he yells at us as he's walking back and forth in jeans and a T-shirt, and the place is getting all steamy and hot. And he starts yelling, one of you has to break 146 for an hour, or you're all worthless. And I couldn't do that at that time. I was a sophomore in college. I was just at like 148 and a half. He picks up stairs and hurls them, screams, and then sits in the erg in a T-shirt and jeans next to me and goes 144.5. And he made every one of us stay and watch him finish that piece. He gets up and he goes, "That's what an old man can do. Figure your shit out." And he left. And I was like, you're Superman. Like, I was like, you're Superman. I don't know how to even like do that. And you're 40 and you're wearing jeans and a T-shirt, and he whooped us all. So it's those animals that you learn to respect, right, and love. I think that's great. And Paul Cook's one of them, and Greg Hughes is one of them. But listen, I want to do the selfish thing here. So we have this erg competition that you have entered. I think it's awesome. So far, we've had a lot of positive results and reviews. How have your boys taken to it so far? Because I think you guys are one of the top seeds in your division. So how have they taken to it?
So we had two teams make the top bracket. One of them did not make it past this most recent round, which was obviously, you know, it sucks for the guys. But I took to this with the idea that, hey, it's optional.
Yep.
And if you guys want to do it, make a team, throw it together, let me know, and I will absolutely do it. I have absolutely adjusted the training plan a little bit for them, in the sense that like for this most recent 4800, instead of doing the regular Saturday workout, they were able to do the 4800 on Saturday, do the regular Saturday workout on Sunday, and then they can take today off because today was just supposed to be steady. So I've adapted a little bit. I haven't necessarily rested them up, and you know, honestly, I love the format. I think it's really cool the way you're shifting the pieces every week, because one thing that, you know, I've talked with our coaches is, you know, like doing 2Ks, like it's just, you know, it's a daunting thing to look at the screen and do, because it's this number where it's like, I know what I should go, I know what I'm capable of, but finding the mental fortitude to sort of do that every 3 days, absolutely very daunting. And then that almost encourages a little bit of gaming it. But with these different distances, you just don't know. It's awesome.
You've no idea.
You know, my guys say, you know, one of the things, here, I'm going to give you another Greg Hughesism, I guess. Shoot from the hip. And one of my kids is his neighbor, like, you know, kitty corner from him. And he texted me a couple weeks ago, so what should I go for this workout? I said, shoot from the hip. And he says, oh, I know where that's from. I said, yeah, I know you do. But you got to be able to sit down and do a workout and say, I don't know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. I'm going to go hard. And then you finish the piece and you go, you know, get a drink and you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, yeah, I was tough. And that's sort of what this sport is about. And so, you know, I've never had a kid test 6,400 meters. I've never had a kid test 4,800 meters on the erg. You know, we've done 6Ks, we've done 30 minutes, so it's not like it's the longest. But, you know, we do 1,500s and 2,500s on Saturday mornings, but never a single all-out open rate one. So they're distances that these guys are familiar with, but it's not like they've ever sat down and done a single piece. So I love the format, and I think it's awesome that it's not just 2Ks every week. And, yeah, I mean, I've told the guys, hey, I don't need you to sit down and rest and taper for this and do your shadow race the day before and everything. Go out there, do a hard piece, have a good time, and see. And if you advance, great. So I think, you know, we were a 5 seed maybe in the first round with the team that's still there. And then I think they were in the top 8 for average split on this 4,800. Great. You know, I mean, it's some of the best ergs on the team. It's not the best 4, unfortunately, because I couldn't make the team. And if I had, I would have loved to do that. But again, I'm not going to take a kid. One of the top ergs on the team is a senior who just said, hey, like, I know he's a more anaerobic guy. He's better at the shorter stuff. And he said, hey, I'm running college. I know right now is the time to work on my base fitness. And he's not doing the 2K right now because he doesn't need to. He wants to work on that base fitness. That's what he needs. And so that's what he's doing. And he didn't want to do it. That's fine. I think that's totally fine. And I think that, you know, the team we have now is a junior, a sophomore, and 2 seniors, and they wanted to do it. And they're having a good time, and awesome. I think that's great. I do think I would love to see them hit above their weight a little bit and beat their original seeding. So we'll see how this week goes, because making the top 16 would be better than they were originally seeded. So
what do you think their actual chances are going into this week? Like, how confident are you right now?
So I was looking at it on my phone, so I'm gonna throw it out there that it's a little hard to, you know, see everything perfectly on your phone screen, obviously. I do think their split from this past week was faster than the other team that they're racing this weekend.
I think they're racing
Talk, which Zach Spitzer, the former Zach Spitzer, is an assistant coach at Saugatuck, and he was the novice boys coach at Mercer before me. So he's in a way my predecessor.
So there's some story here.
There's a little bit of history there.
Oh man, I hope PJ remembers this, because that's a good little thing. You actually, so according to the results, you are 1.1 splits faster on average. But I think Saugatuck had a better time than you in the 21-12. So now you're getting into this fun little. Those extra 400 meters are going to matter a lot.
Short versus long. You know, we'll see. I think a little bit too is, you know, one of my top guys has been dealing with a little bit of a hip thing, so we'll see how that happens. You know, you know, I'm gonna be honest. I think one of the, like, some of my top guys, you know, one of them, great kid, not doing the ERG competition, but you know, he's a great kid, and but he, talking about what you said before about stuff outside the boathouse, he has, you know, he's a really tall kid, quick on the ERG, you know. Talking to a lot of colleges, and he used to go see a physical therapist once a week, just, you know, and it's not even, oh, I'm injured. It's, hey, you know, I swing by her office on the way home from practice, and she gives me some stretches, and, you know, it helps keep him healthy and loose and ready to race. That's a tough thing that we can't do any. Like, the kids are stuck at home, and, you know, working, hey, this is bothering me. How do I adjust this? I mean, having some flexibility and, you know, telling the kids, hey, like, your steady state days, cross train. I don't want you on the ERG 6 days a week right now. That's important. So
that's well, you actually gave me a good idea to help out these athletes, is give them some ideas on what to do, or give the coaches ideas on what to do outside of this, because we have a big network of people, especially Leo Training. Like, that guy could help really get kids motivated to do other things and still be fit. But
I actually worked with it's Joe Leo, right?
Joe Leo, yeah.
So I helped Skip Keel with the U23 light quad 2 years ago, 2018, when the camp was on a Mercer, and he came for a few days and helped the guys out there, and he was awesome.
I remember that. Yeah, Joe's my best friend. We've known each other since like 6th grade or something crazy. Roommates in college, awesome. Rode together all through. But Jamie, I take notes in all my interviews, and I tend to circle a lot of things. And this interview was full of fun Huisms and learning about your history of erging on a cruise ship. I love how when I talk to coaches and people that have been around rowing, their story is always unique of how they got started in rowing. Right? It's never just, oh, I showed up to the boathouse one day and I started rowing and this, that. There's always some other kind of fun story tied to the people that make it their career in their life. There always is. I mean, without fail, it could be an experience with a great coach. It could be finding an erg on a Carnival, you know, cruise ship, and I absolutely love it. So Jamie, you know, this is the Wacka-Wacka or the hangin' and banging with Jamie Hamp. This has been an awesome podcast. I love some of the things that you said about motivating boys. The fact that you've identified the needs of your athletes, that you need 2 training plans. and all of this going back since 2006 when you started rowing. So Jamie, thank you so much for being part of this podcast.
For having me.
We're gonna do a lot more of these. So you are number 2, and I think we got 4 or 5 more scheduled this week. So thank you so much, and we look forward to having more Rowers Choice.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
I'm glad you did, and we're gonna have more of these interviews this week. So more tune in to Rowers Choice Podcast. Come to rowerschoice.com and check out all of our interviews. Thanks for listening.